Hyderabad, the city of Nawabs, the city of jewels and riches. Hyderabad came into existence because of the river Musi. Today, Hyderabad is killing off the very river which was the reason for its existence. The Musi River originates in the Anandagiri Hills in Vikarabad, Telangana. This river was also the reason for massive floodings in Hyderabad during the 19th and 20th century. The Great Musi Flood of 1908 killed around 50,000 people and made one-fourth of the population homeless. It was due to this factor the Nawab of Hyderabad, Osman Ali Khan, built two massive dams along the river Musi. The Osman Sagar Dam and the Himayat Sagar Dam was built to protect the city from being destroyed by the river Musi. The water in these two dams are clear even to date, but the scenario changes drastically as the river enters the city of Hyderabad. It becomes a cesspool for garbage, sewage, industrial waste and even radioactive materials. But still, people are forced to depend on this river for their day-to-day survival and livelihood. At the heart of the city is the Hussain Sagar Lake, a human-made lake which is also a massive tourist attraction. Unfortunately, this lake has also been the victim of massive industrial and sewage pollution. This point in Old Malkanjgiri is where the water from Hussain Sagar joins the river Musi. The situation of the river worsens drastically from here on. Jasveen Jairat, author and founder of the NGO Soul, that is Seva Lakes, has been fighting for the Musi River for the past many years.
You see, there are Supreme Court guidelines and environmental guidelines that every water body, including a river or a lake, has a maximum water spread demarcation. And anything within that boundary that is specified legally, geohydrologically, and it is on record, any construction, even putting a single brick within that, is illegal according to the laws of the land. It's not just within the water spread area, but even beyond the water spread, there is something called a buffer zone. Even in the buffer zone, you are not supposed to lay a single brick. You can plant trees, you can carry on a seasonal cultivation, that's okay, but nothing of a permanent nature. And you cannot also change the slopes and the geohydrology, the geophysical features, through dumping of mud or through anything that changes the natural drainage patterns of the water. Because basically all the water bodies are supposed to be fed through water draining into them, and this collective drainage then follows the lowest gradient that's available in that topography.
The Supreme Court of India had ruled that the river Ganga and Yamuna were living entities and that they had some basic human rights. We asked the Senior Counsel of the Telangana and Andhra Pradesh High Court, Mr. L. Ravichander, if Musi had some basic human rights as well.
The whole concept of river rights is, I think, akin to human rights because they're intricately connected. Connected because we look at nature today as somebody who needs to be protected, and therefore anybody who has protection, who needs protection, has rights. And if you look at the larger scheme of things, and it's very sad we call this stream behind my back as a river today, and If you don't protect it, it will be a day when we will need, the whole of the city will require protection of a different kind. Also understand that there is another angle to human right, to river right protection, not from the vistas of the flow of the river, as much as I would see it as the rights of the human beings to a clean and nice environment. We have now seen Article 21 of the Constitution ever expanding. We've seen that courts have repeatedly held that a good environment, a healthy environment, environment that's not polluted, are all parts of the human right and the right under Article 21 to good proper living. Therefore, rights to protect rivers, I think, must become a one big subject in the agenda of good governance.
Development of the city has also resulted in the destruction of its environment. The government's plan of beautifying the river doesn't seem to have many takers.
Not just beautification. See, we are, it's not just beautification, but in the name of so-called development. When you look at the metro railway station that has come up, it is right in the Musi Nadi. Okay, so you always made it dysfunctional, or you thought so ki the city can do without the river. So that's a very perverted way of looking at a natural resource that is a provider. The river is a provider, and you didn't look at it in that fashion at all. So that's a very perverted way of, and a very skewed nature of looking at things.
Now, you know, nowadays our whole concept of beauty is skewed up. What's happening is, you know, we believe that we must have a nice restaurant, we believe we must have a nice path walkway, we believe that it must have a nice cafeteria. These are the kind of ideas we think of when we talk about tourism. You know, the other day I had gone to Etipothala, and you know, the entire area is now cordoned off. I've been there a decade ago. I walked right up to the waterfall, and today they say they are crocodiles. I don't know where they were 20 years ago. And as a consequence of which, what do you have? I have a Doordarshan of the Etipothala waterfall. Now, look here. Now, what's happened is, if you look through, the whole pathway area is come up. Now, over a period of time, what could happen is, if at some point in time the waters start flooding down here, I don't know what protection will happen here. One. Two, can I not protect the river? Can I not? The most important thing of beautifying a river is beautify the river, not the environs of the river. A river, as it flows naturally, has its own beauty. And when we talk about river beauty, that is what we are talking about.
Encroachments into the riverbed has ensured that the river has shrunk massively.
Now, what is being done by the real estate lobby? There are two sources of encroachment of this buffer zone and the maximum water spread. One is through the real estate lobby. These are the large land sharks who not only destroy the natural drainage patterns through dumping of mud and raising the levels so that the water stops entering into the water body and instead is diverted to random residential areas or habited areas and appears as a flood. So, and these, once you do that, then this is a permanent starvation of the river, because the river gets its food, which is water, from these natural flows. And now, once having done that, then you have a permanent non-water land, piece of land that is created through this dumping. And over time, then an argument is used, well, this is not a part of the water body because no water stays here. Therefore, this becomes a legitimizing argument for permanent destruction of the water spread. And then, you know, you have the survey numbers, and then somebody will come and claim it, and so on and so forth, and eventually you will have some construction. Now, this is a typical pattern followed by the large real estate developers and the large political lobbies supporting them, and so on. There is a nexus between the real estate lobby, between the local politicians, between the, not just local, but even the state politicians, between the bureaucrats, between the police. And this happens blatantly, and it's like broad highway robbery of public lands, public spaces. The second kind of encroachment is the kind of encroachment where there are poor landless people. There's a heavy migration from out city areas looking for a better livelihood because agriculture is in a crisis, and they come and they have no place, they have no space, they don't count as citizens of the city. So they have to eke out a living, they have to sleep somewhere, they have to put a little bit of their belongings somewhere, their families have to stay, children, wives, and few belongings. So they come, they are pushed by force to habit only the most rejected, dejected, dirty and unlivable spaces. And these are usually on the borders of water bodies which have been reduced to drainage cesspools because of all the pollution entering. So the place stinks, it's infested with mosquitoes and all kinds of harmful bacteria, the conditions of living are unsanitary, and even dogs and cats will not live there. So these human beings, this migratory population and the poorest of the poor in the city are pushed to habit these places, and that also counts as encroachment. But of course the politics and the source and the motivation, the stimulation of the two sources of encroachment come from very, very different sources. Then there is also a third, which is a subset of the real estate encroachment, which is coming from religious organizations, organized religious organizations. There could be a masjid or a mandir or a Nirankari Bhavan or some sanstha, with either the saffron or the green or a gurudwara or a church, God knows what. But they come and they start with the process of putting a little temple or a masjid. And gradually they kind of start extending its boundaries till it becomes a substantial piece of land.
The citizens of the city are the biggest victims of this pollution. From food to milk, and even their DNAs are being contaminated.
Most places, now they are growing grass, and this grass is actually being fed to buffaloes to produce milk, and that milk is coming back to city for consumption. And lead has been found in this milk, very high levels. And then some farmers, they are producing vegetables, and among vegetables again mostly it is spinach. So spinach again picks up lots of heavy metals. So even though spinach again comes back to the city for consumption, and the spinach in these areas also has heavy metals. So even those have been found in the research by different institutions. Now in the past 25 years, this food chain has contaminated so much, and it has entered the DNA of the living beings, including human beings. And Hyderabad, long back they found strontium, which is a radioactive element, was found in the sewerage water which is flowing from Banjara Hills. So where there is no industry. So people were baffled, and it was coming from some small domestic household level industries, small scale industries. And if you look at Sanat Nagar, there are a lot of goldsmith workshops. So they let out cyanide. Then you have a lot of mechanical workshops which repair cars, bikes, and they let out the waste oil into again a sewerage network. And you have industries, pharmaceutical industries, you have chemical industries in Sanat Nagar and all over the Musi catchment area. In Katedan, they have textile dyeing industries. You have battery recycling industries. So every industry, every household, every small scale, big scale industry, everyone is externalizing their costs. They are not treating as per the Environment Protection Act. And Hyderabad Metro Water Works is also letting out sewerage water. So everyone is seeing the Musi as a ultimate dumping place for their waters. So you have all of them ending up there, and not 1 year, 2 years. For the past 25 years, this is happening.
The floods that happened in Kerala in 2018 stands as a chilling reminder of what could happen to Hyderabad if it continues to neglect the Musi.
They are decreasing the holding capacity of the water body. That is the biggest hindrance that's happening here.
And with destruction, everyone will be affected. Common people, poor people, because River Musi in Telangana, close to 260 kilometers, 5 districts, erstwhile 5 districts, and almost 1/4 of the Telangana population is now living on River Musi, either side of River Musi, and they are dependent on River Musi catchment area for their drinking water. So River Musi conservation is very, very important for Telangana and not just for Hyderabad. And it is also important for people who are worried about agriculture and farmers, and it should also worry people who want to conserve river for generations to come.
You see, all these rivers are also flood control measures. So the water which is supposed to drain into the river and control the flood of the habited areas, that water is then separated, segregated and pushed back into the habited areas, creating all kinds of flood problems that we see happening in our city, even with a normal rainfall downpour. It doesn't have to be heavy rains. Even just a normal heavy rain, which the city was capable of dealing with, even that creates floods these days. And it's a result of not just the Musi being encroached and Musi being prevented from absorbing these waters, but also the various water bodies. This city was full of about 3,000 water bodies, Hyderabad lakes. And these water bodies were both, they were a drought mitigation measure and a flood control measure. So you never had the kind of floods that you have with every season, any time, without fail. Even right next to Hussain Sagar Lake, you have the road is flooded with a heavy downpour. The entire drainage system of the city, the natural drainage system, of which the water bodies in Musi River were a part of this drainage system, all that has been disrupted and destroyed by disturbing the topography that was exploited to channelize water flows in a way that they don't disturb the human habitation.